Do you always stare this much, Mrs. Joan? His voice was calm, too calm, as if her trembling presence in front of him meant absolutely nothing. Jungkook didn't even bother to look up from the glowing screen of his phone, his fingers gliding effortlessly across it, scrolling through emails while the guests applauded somewhere behind them. Wine blinked, caught between disbelief and hurt. She whispered softly, I wasn't stirring, I was just. Chungkook finally lifted his gaze, dark, unreadable, eyes met hers, sharp, distant, almost metallic in their coolness. His jawline flexed as he interrupted, tone clipped and polite enough to be cruel. Trying to believe this is real, trust me, you're not the only one. The words landed like shattered glass in her chest. She forced a small smile, even though her fingers clenched tightly around the bouquet of white lilies she held. It's not ideal for either of us, I know, but maybe we can at least try to make this work. He scoffed a soft, humorless sound that made her feel smaller than the weight that hung over her shoulders. Try, Miss Wine, this isn't a school project, it's a contract. A merger, you will sign the papers, attend a few public events, smile for the cameras, and that will be it. You will live comfortably, I'll work in peace. End of story. He slipped his phone into his pocket, finally straightening up. His tuxedo fit him like sin. When he stepped closer, Wine's heart fluttered unwillingly, her breath catching at the nearness of the man she was supposed to call her husband. You are saying that as if feelings are forbidden. They are, at least in this marriage. His tone was final, the same tone he probably used in board meetings to shut down multi-million-dollar deals. Then, with a smirk barely touching the corner of his lips, he added under his breath, let's make one thing clear, this marriage is a formality. Don't expect love. Even his indifference felt sharper than rejection. The man standing before me was flawless, sculpted, polished, powerful, and completely hollow. The crowd's claps echoed in the distance as the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. Jungkook didn't glance at her. When he slid the ring onto her trembling finger, his touch was cold, a business transaction sealed in gold. When the cameras flashed, one forced a smile. Her eyes shimmered with something the photographers mistook for joy, but it wasn't. It was resignation. Later, as the guests faded and the hall emptied, Wine found herself standing alone at the edge of the marble aisle. The scent of roses had already begun to fade. He stood a few feet away, speaking to his assistant something about a meeting in Singapore. The next morning, not even their wedding ring could delay his business. You are leaving tomorrow. He didn't even turn. There is no need for us to play house. My secretary will arrange a credit card and car for you. Just don't create scandals, Mrs. Joan. Her voice soft, cracked slightly. You don't even know me, Jungkook. This time he looked over his shoulder, not kindly, not cruelly, but as if her words barely brushed his face. I don't need to. I just need you to follow the rules. And then he walked away, leaving her standing under the fading lights, surrounded by wilting flowers and vows that had never meant a thing. He didn't just marry me to save his empire, he married me to remind me how small I was in his world. Mrs. Joan, this way, please. The receptionist's tone was polite but curious. Everyone's eyes followed Wine as she entered the glossy marble lobby of Joan Enterprises. Her heels clicked nervously, echoing across the floor. That smelled faintly of espresso and expensive perfume. She had spent the entire morning making sure she looked presentable, a beige blouse tucked neatly into a pencil skirt, a soft touch of lipstick, her hair pinned back. She didn't want to embarrass him. Maybe, she thought, maybe if she proved herself useful, he would find his year as more than a formality. The elevator doors slid open to the top floor. A dozen employees turned their heads the moment she stepped out. They were not used to seeing the boss wife. Jungkook stood at the head of the conference room table, crisp black suit, silver watch glinting under the lights, the picture of control and effortless power. His expression, however, was unreadable. You are late. His voice didn't rise, it didn't need to. The chill in it was enough. The traffic was a bit. Excuses already, that's not very professional, Mrs. Jones. The title Mrs. Jones sounded like mockery on his tongue. A few of his implies exchanged awkward glances, one swallowed the lump in her throat and forced a smile. I'm sorry, I just thought I could help maybe assist with the project. He chuckled under his breath, resting one hand on the table, eyes glinting with quiet arrogance. Hell, this isn't a charity wine. This is Joan Enterprises. My employees don't need emotional support, they need results. The laughter that followed wasn't cruel, just obedient. People always laughed when Jungkook spoke. It was part of his authority, his aura. Then, turning to his staff, he said smoothly, "Everyone, this is my wife, Mrs. Joan. Be nice, she's still learning to fit into our professional standards." The tone was light, playful, even, but wine caught the glint in his eyes. Cold, deliberate. She tried to laugh it off, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'll do my best to learn quickly." But before she could finish, Jungkook's lips curved slightly. He leaned closer and murmured just loud enough for everyone to hear. "Try not to eat the presentation snacks before the meeting starts, Fatty." The room froze, then burst into awkward laughter. Wine's breath hissed, her cheeks burned, heart hammering painfully. Even Hannah and Somi, the two best friends who had once sworn loyalty, giggled behind their hands. Each laugh felt like a knife, small, sharp, invisible, the kind that doesn't leave scars, just emptiness. She forced a smile, pretending not to care. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched the edge of her folder. Joe didn't even look at her again. He was already flipping through slides, speaking about quarterly profits as though nothing had happened. Days turned into weeks. The Joan mentioned once grand and echoing with possibility became painfully quiet. He came home late some nights, not at all. The bed stayed cold on his side. His calling lingered longer than he ever did. Wine would sit by the window watching the lights flicker, pretending the silence didn't bother her. She tried to talk to him, to understand him, to reach whatever part of him was still human beneath that polished exterior. One evening, when he finally came home past midnight, she greeted him softly at the door. "You skipped dinner again. I kept it warm for you." He barely glanced up while removing his tie. "I already ate. Don't wait up for me next time." "You have been working so much lately. Maybe you could take a day off. We could." "You wouldn't understand wine. You have never handled anything serious." The words hit harder than he realized. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. He just nodded, stepping back. "He says I wouldn't understand, but I would if only he would let me in." She stopped eating as much after that quietly, gradually. Maybe if she looked the way he wanted, he would see her differently. Days later, her reflection in the mirror startled her. Her once round cheeks were thinner, her eyes dimmer. She pressed a hand to her stomach, trying to remember the last full meal she would had. Still, she smiled every morning when he left, pretending everything was fine, pretending she wasn't breaking. Sometimes, when he caught her avoiding his gaze, something inside him twisted. She smiled less now, laughed almost never, and though he told himself it was better that way, fewer distractions, less emotion, it bothered him. Why does she stop smiling every time I open my mouth? I only tease her, so why does she look like she's breaking? He never said it out loud. Pride wouldn't let him, but for the first time in his life, the silence in his mansion felt heavier than his success. The soft hum of rain against the window filled the empty room. The mansion was dark, only the faint yellow glow from the dressing table lamp touched Wine's reflection. She stood there, barefoot, wrapped in a silk nightgown that once fit her curves perfectly. Now it clung to her frame like a ghost of its former beauty, sliding off her shoulders. Her collarbones jutted out sharply, her skin pale, her once bright eyes, the ones Jungkook used to avoid meeting, looked unfamiliar even to her. She reached for her wedding ring laying on the dresser. When she slipped it on, it slid down her finger and dropped to the floor with a faint metallic sound. One bent to pick it up, her hand trembling. Maybe he'll love me when I disappeared completely. Her voice cracked, the words dissolving into the silence like a secret she wasn't mean to say aloud. Maybe if I'm smaller, quieter, perfect, maybe then I'll finally be enough. The mirror didn't lie. Her body was shrinking, but the ache inside her was growing louder. She forced a smile at her reflection, brittle and empty, then turned off the light. Next morning, Wine entered the office with slow, hesitant steps. She carried a stack of folders, determined to appear fine, determined to make him proud, even if he never noticed. Her friends Hannah and Somi were leaning by the coffee station, whispering in tones that sounded friendly to outsiders but sliced through her like glass. Did you see her outfit? She's trying so hard. Poor thing. Still thinks he will look at her like he does at the models. Maybe if she stopped starving herself, she would at least look alive. He's into power, not pity. One froze mid-step, her hands tightened around the folders. Knuckles white, she tried to walk past them, pretending she didn't hear, pretending she was strong. Good morning, Hannah saw me. Her voice was soft, fragile, like glass, white before it breaks, but Somi smiled. Morning, Mrs. Jones. Don't forget to save some coffee for us. Wouldn't want you to ruin that diet. Laughter again. Once thought burn, eyes stinging, but she smiled, the same polite, painful smile she had mastered over the months. If I cry, they win. If I speak, he will call me dramatic, so I'll just be silent. What none of them noticed was Jungkook standing near the glass wall of his office, watching everything. His usual blank expression faltered, the pen in his hand stilled. He had come out to give a few instructions, but when he saw his employees, her friends mocking her, something in him snapped. He stepped forward, voice cold and sharp as a blade. Is this what I pay you for, gossip? The laughter died instantly. Hannah's face drained of color, so Mr. Tutt, sir, we were just what? Humiliating my wife in my company. His tone was controlled, but his jaw was tight, his eyes dangerously calm. The room went dead silent. Even Wine couldn't believe it. You are dismissed, both of you. Collect your things. The women exchanged shocked looks, trying to protest, but Jungkook's voice left no room for argument. When I say professional standards, I don't mean cruelty disguised as humor. Get out. He turned then, finally looking at Wine for a moment, just one his eyes softened. You shouldn't let people like them make you question yourself. She blinked, startled. The man who had once mocked her was now defending her. But his tone carried something strange, guilt. I didn't want you to see that. Maybe I should have seen it sooner. Then he walked away, too proud to say more, but shaken enough that he didn't speak to anyone for the rest of the day. He defended me, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like a crack in his armor and in mine. The annual Joan Enterprises gala shimmered with gold and glass. Cameras flashed, chandeliers glittered, and Wine, though breathtaking in a black gown, felt like a shadow among the lights. Arrived beside her, his hand resting on her back out of habit, not affection. Still, that single gesture made her heart ache. You don't have to pretend to care for the cameras. He looked down at her briefly, eyes unreadable. It's not pretending. That one sentence lingered confusing, haunting until she smiled faintly, but before she could respond, the music swelled and the word began to blur. A sudden dizziness struck her, a shaded lights above swelled, the laughter around her fading into a muffled hum. I think I need to sit down. Jungkook turned just in time to see her collapse. The sound of her glass slipping from her hand and shattering on the marble echoed across the hall. He was beside her in seconds for once, panic crashing across his perfect composure. He knelt, pulling her into his arms as the guests gasped and murmured, Wine, hey, look at me. What happened? Her eyes fluttered weakly, her lips barely moving. I'm sorry, I didn't want to embarrass you. Don't say that, just stay awake. He lifted her effortlessly, ignoring the whispers around them. Cameras clicked, but for once, Chung didn't care about reputation, business, or image. He cared only about the pale women in his arms. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and regret. Chunguk stood beside her bed, sleeves rolled up, hands clenched tightly as the doctor spoke. She hasn't been eating properly for months. Severe exhaustion, dehydration, malnutrition. If this continued any longer, the rest of the words blurred. Chunguk stared at my sleeping face, fragile, peaceful, and far too thin. I destroyed the one person who only ever wanted to be enough. He brushed a strand of hair from her forehead, his touch trembling for the first time, his pride cracked completely. He tried to disappear, and I didn't even notice. He sat beside her, guilt floating every corner of his chest. The man who once prided himself on control had finally lost the one thing he couldn't afford to her. The rhythmic beat of the hospital monitor echoed softly through the sterile room. Outside, the rain whispered against the windows the same way it had the night wind once stood before her mirror, breaking quietly in the dark. Now it was Jungkook who looked broken. He sat beside her bed, his usually perfect hair disheveled. The proud CEO of Joan Enterprises was nowhere to be found. Only a man remained, one drowning in regret. One stared, eyelids flickering open slowly. The room came into focus, the soft light, the smell of medicine, and Jungkook sitting there with his head bowed, hands trembling as if afraid to touch her. You stayed? He lifted his head instantly, relief flashing across his face. Of course I stayed. I can't leave you again. She gave a faint, humorless smile. Why guilt? His breath caught. Her tone wasn't cruel. It was empty, stripped of hope that hurt more than any insult could ever. No, because I was wrong about everything about you. She looked away, staring at the window where the rain traced long, delicate lines. You think seeing that fixes things? He swallowed hard, voice cracking. I know it doesn't, but please let me try to make it right. I didn't mean to hurt you like that. Her eyes snapped to his cold, clear glaze, trembling with everything she had buried for months. You didn't mean to, Jungkook. You started it. He froze, guilt written all over his face as she continued. Her voice steady, bitter, heartbreakingly calm. You mocked me first, you laughed at me, you called me names in front of everyone, you made them believe it was okay to humiliate me. You gave them permission, you showed them the way. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out, only silence. And now you want to be forgiven just because you regret it? It doesn't work like that, Jungkook. Her tone wasn't angry, it was tired, the exhaustion of someone who had cried enough for two lifetimes. Tears welled in his eyes, something no one at Joan Enterprise would ever believe possible. He lowered his head, whispering, I know I don't deserve it, but please, I'm sorry, Wine. I'm sorry for every word, every moment I made you feel less than you are. He reached out instantly, taking her frail hand. For the first time, she didn't pull away, but she didn't hold him back either. You can't undo it, but you can stop pretending you are made of stone. Her tone softened, start by being human. That night, when she fell asleep again, Chuguk sat there for hours, watching her breathe, the steady rhythm of her heartbeat grounding him. For the first time, he cried quietly, not as a CEO, but as a man who had finally realized what love really cost. A week later, the boardroom of Joan Enterprises was filled with chatter, executives, employees, and partners waiting for the CEO's usual sharp, flawless presentation. Jungkook entered in his tailored suit, every eye turning to him. The cold aura was still there, but something had changed. His expression wasn't prideful anymore, it was raw, human. He stood at the head of the long glass table, looking around at the people who used to fear him. When he spoke, his voice was low, steady, but carried a weight no one had heard before. Before we start today's meeting, I need to say something personal. A ripple of murmurs moved through the room. A while ago, I made a mistake, a cruel one. I mocked someone who didn't deserve it, someone who was kind to me even when I didn't know what kindness meant. I disrespected her publicly. He paused, exhaling shakily. Every employee watched in stunned silence. They had never seen him like this. I humiliated my wife, Mrs. Joan Wine, and because of that, others followed my example. I allowed a culture of mockery, not professionalism. I failed her, and as later, I failed all of you. No one spoke. You could hear a pin drop. Even Hannah and Somi, sitting near the end of the table, stared in disbelief. Then Jungkook did something unthinkable. He bought a deep, humble bow, the kind that stripped away every ounce of arrogance he had ever worn like armor. Wine, if you ever hear about this, I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I was blinded by pride and I hurt the one person who ever looked at me like I was human. I can't take back what I said, but I'll spend every day proving I have changed. He straightened slowly, eyes glistening. The room was utterly silent, the employees exchanging stern looks. The man who never apologized to anyone, not competitors, not board members, not even family, had just publicly confessed his sins and asked for forgiveness. Wine, who stood quietly by the door she had come to collect a document unaware of his plan, felt tears blur her vision. He turned his head and saw her. For a moment. The whole world stopped. No words were exchanged, just a look. A look heavy with regret, hope, and something fragile redemption. Maybe people can change, not because they're forced to, but because they finally see what they destroyed. And for the first time, Jungkook's cold smile was gone, replaced by something real. A man, not a CEO, a heart, not an empire, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to begin again.